Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tribe of Leaders podcast. Today's guest is Sonia Ferrell, and she recently made a huge transition from industrial engineering and her 18-year career as a corporate leader and jumped into the more flexible lifestyle of being an entrepreneur and a values coach. We talked about how identifying and using your core values can be a guidepost in your decision making and help you be more successful. She also shares one of the things that she learned early on in her career, and that is to accept feedback and not take things personally is one of the key factors in success. My name is Emmy Kirshner. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. The one thing that I get asked all the time is, how do you achieve success in business and make an impact? In each episode of the Tribe of Leaders podcast, you'll hear from entrepreneurs and visionaries who share how their leadership has changed not only their lives, but the lives of everybody around them. Hey, could you do me a quick favor? Take a screenshot of this podcast episode right now and post it on your Instagram and tag me and anybody else who you think could benefit from it, especially if you've been finding value. I'm so grateful for you listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tribe of Leaders podcast. I am, as always and as every week, so super excited to bring Sonia Ferrell with you. She is a values coach. She's just starting her business and has had an incredible journey of leadership and stepping up and stepping into taking on new challenges. So, Sonia, welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited and grateful for you for this platform. I love it.
Awesome. Share with everybody a little bit about your background.
Oh boy. So my background is actually in industrial and systems engineering. And I worked in that field for about 18 years. And I evolved from the corporate engineering career to really create the space for personal growth, reflection, and transformation, because that's what the leadership work did for me once I went to get my master's in leadership. But my background initially was as an industrial engineer.
Which is incredible. So what made the shift for you, or what was the moment where you were like, I want to go get my master's in leadership after being in something that for me sounds really like tech heavy and very detail oriented, like a totally different part of your brain.
And this is really interesting because I never thought I would have a business. I mean, my dad was a business owner. His dad was, in a way, a business owner as well. But I just never thought I needed business. And everyone in engineering would go back to get an MBA. And I just told myself, I don't want to do an MBA. And I even tried studying a little bit for the GMAT. And then I said, I'm not sure if this is what I want. If I'm going to go back to school, I want to be able to learn something that I'm going to enjoy. And somehow the master's in leadership fell in my lap, and I just loved it because it was all about connecting with people. And that was the part that I feel I was missing.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you finished that and now you're starting your business. What made you decide to become an entrepreneur instead of potentially going back into corporate?
Well, it all started with, as an entrepreneur, wanting more flexibility. I have a 7-year-old and I wanted to spend more time with her, and being in corporate and working as an engineer and being in charge of 1 or 2 departments, it was hard to make that time. Mm-hmm. And then I also knew that I loved the leadership work and I wanted to get back into that. And I just didn't know how, Emmy. I said how for a long time. And eventually I went back and reconnected with the staff, and I started volunteering, doing workshops where we brought in emotional intelligence, mm-hmm. effective communication, and values to women that had been incarcerated. It was maximizing opportunities for moms. And what I started seeing is these moms becoming aware of their patterns and becoming aware of what their experiences and not wanting those experiences for their kids and wanting to shift their future. And we're committed to being a role model for their kids. And that's when I said, wow, this work is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to continue being part of the leadership work and transformation.
Wow, I love it. So how are you working with your clients now?
So right now I'm working with emerging leaders that are wanting to advance in their career. And what I look at is I look at their personal values and I guide them to tap into their role and their potential by bridging that gap and developing the values that they need to act and move forward confidently in the direction that they're going to fulfill their goals and dreams.
And what does that what does that look like for them? Like when you start to bridge the gap, what happens for them?
So one simple example is a lot of times one of the values that can be missing is self-worth. And people may want to develop their confidence or accept compliments and all and accept themselves, but they're not there yet because they haven't developed their self-worth. So then we get to go back and look at um, what does self-worth look like for you and how can we start developing that so that we can move on to the next, because the values come in phases. So you can't skip, self-worth and become confident. So
Right.
it's really taking those steps to get to the next phase.
Okay. Excellent. And let's talk about values for a minute, just so that we're clear for everybody too, because you and I talked about this before we started recording, and I had said that it's a really important part of the training I do with my community and my people, and having really knowing and honing in on what your core values are and what your what's most important to you. So how do you start to get somebody to identify what their values are if they haven't really thought about it before?
Right. So I use a survey, and the survey has questions that trigger trigger what their current values are, what their foundational values, and also what they desire in the future. So one example would be if I, this is, just doing it in simple forms. If we took a few values like work, friends, education, family, fun, and we just ask people to prioritize those values. Which one's more important for you? Work, friends, family, and then prioritize those. And it could be really interesting because I could prioritize family and other people can prioritize fun, even though we have the same values.
Right.
And that's how we have different perspectives. So that
Right.
values are amazing because they not only help see what are your values, what are your passions, and, understanding these, but they also help you see what are the values of other people so that we can communicate better and see their perspective.
Yeah, we did. I think it was like 2 years ago. My kids and I sat down and did family. We did our individual values, and then we did family core values. And everybody got to pick like two of their core values to put into the family core values. And then we narrowed it down to five. And it was really cool because three of us had like the same thing, but it didn't, I don't remember which one it was either at the moment, but it all meant different things for us. So we really had to like drill down and identify like what that word meant and defining it in a very complete, detailed way, which was so helpful as we were starting new projects. My kids in school, and then I was doing some new work stuff. So do you find that with the people that you work with too, they have a new sense of clarity?
Yes, because they're able to link stories with, oh, why is family and security like in my foundation? And definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of times with coworkers or even family members where they prioritize other things.
Right, right. It's incredible. And I want to transition a little bit too here because we've talked about, the core values, which is again, so important. I'd love to talk about a little bit about how leadership has impacted your journey. And one of the things that you mentioned on your intake survey was getting feedback and not taking it personally. Why was this so important for you?
Yes, because now I love getting feedback because I see it as a way to help me grow. But back then, after I got my engineering degree, when I would get feedback, I would take it personal because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm trying my best, and you're telling me that I'm not communicating effectively, or
Uh-huh.
and I would take it personal, and I laugh now. But what leadership really taught me is that there's many distinctions. One of them being taking responsibility, because we are the authors of our lives. Taking responsibility and not blaming others, taking responsibility and not saying, well, you think I didn't do as good because blah, blah, blah. But really taking responsibility of what we're doing.
Right. And how do you see that affecting other people once they're being accountable and responsible for their actions?
Well, we stop that blaming, looking for excuses, coming up with stories, and we just become responsible. If I'm late to a meeting, I'm responsible for it. I'm not going to blame other people because, one, if I didn't check my time, if I didn't check what the email that showed the meeting time. So we become responsible in
Right.
that sense.
Okay, great. Great. How do you think that this, both getting feedback and the values, can affect the habits that people have?
That's a really good question. So getting feedback and looking at our habits, it's something that we do automatic, and the feedback helps us create a way to start learning something new, start a new practice so that we can grow. So implementing habits is really implementing something that you want to grow in whatever area it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the reason why I'm thinking about this right now is, you're about to launch this incredible Habits for Success summit, which I have the honor to be a part of. And I'm really thinking that between the core values and what you said about feedback, that the next step is developing habits that really allow you to take in what's working, what's not working, and align that with your values. So can you tell a little bit more about the summit?
Yes, yes. The summit is filled with amazing influencers and entrepreneurs and coaches such as yourself, who provide great information for people that are wanting to start a side business, for people that already have a business, and for people that are just wanting to learn, empower their mind, and get tips and strategies, because there's an array of things when it comes to, for example, what you shared in terms of how do I increase my sales? How do I increase my connections?
Mm-hmm.
So creating that habit, and I actually use this habit monthly tracking sheet that I post on the wall in front of me. And I keep looking at, okay, how many people have I connected with this month? And, I keep doing a check mark each time for each day of the month, because it's creating that new habit.
Right.
That's
Right.
one example. But there are other influencers that are talking about, well, nowadays with things changing, it's time to develop or use the digital platforms. And how do we do that? How do we create connections, community, consistency? And it's just filled with a lot of great information.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to share the link for that because that starts next week. And if you want to hop on and learn about how habits can help you be more successful, you definitely want to sign up for it, because I know, Sonia, you have just incredible coaches and influencers and entrepreneurs who are sharing all of their best knowledge.
Yeah. And it's, a variety of stuff, including how do we create the habit to meditate or to embody our greatest self, and also things that we may not be doing, but as things shift, what are the things that you want to incorporate? And yes, the link is habits, the number 4, habitsforsuccess.org. And I know you're going to be sharing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have it linked up in the show notes, etc. So I'm really excited about it. It's going to be, I think, an incredible learning time and an experience for everybody, particularly with everything that's just going on in the world right now.
Definitely. And and I also wanted to share, since we were talking about values, and values is really another distinction of leadership, because it's what really holds our vision and our passions.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for being on today, because this has been so helpful, and I share your passion around identifying values and helping bridge those gaps that people have.
Yes, thank you. And like I said, I'm new. I left corporate about 2 years ago, and it was not easy. It was not easy because I kept staying in the fear of the unknown, really. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and really finding that community, and the community that you are creating with this podcast it's really golden.
Awesome. What was it the community that you've learned or been your biggest learning experience over the last 2 years as you kind of hopped out of being afraid of the unknown?
And a lot of times we think we could do things ourselves, but the reality is no. So being able to reach out for help, get a mentor, get a coach, that was a big thing for me. And then finding that community, because there's a lot of different networks out there, and just be okay with asking questions and with saying no if it's not, if it doesn't fit with you. So finding that right tribe, it's big.
It is. It is. I totally agree with you. And I love the people that have become a part of the tribe of leaders here and my community on Facebook. So I'm glad that we are aligned in that way as well. So thank you again, Sonia. And to everybody who is listening, stay tuned. We have another exciting episode for you next week.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and be in excellence.
As an entrepreneur, do you ever feel isolated, like you're just grinding away and not getting to the place or reaching the goals that you want? Maybe you've realized that you just spent days, weeks, or even months trying to accomplish something, only to figure out that the answer that you have would have saved you all of that time. I know I've had that experience, and my clients have as well. And that's why I created the Tribe of Leaders Biz School. Get the accountability, the training, and the knowledge base in a community of like-minded people who are there to support you. Go ahead and check it out. It's thetribeofleaders.com.